Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar about responsible and mindful AI development. And we have here today my colleague Minna Mustakallio and myself. I'm the lead researcher at Unknown, and I will be your host today and introducing some of the practicalities before we dive into the actual webinar. Can you, Minna, show the next slide? Briefly about Unknown, if you're not familiar about us, we are a Helsinki-based management consultancy, and we work with different type of innovation, strategy, and growth projects. And AI is one of the themes, actually. Next slide, please. Many of the themes that we work on are bridging strategy into action. So when the strategy has been made and the visions and missions have been set, we are the people who come in and put in things into action. And also we're working on different types of innovation and growth projects where we need to understand emerging markets, maybe customer segments. We need to understand new business models, new growth models, and etc. Research is one of the tools that we like to use in every type of project because we're a deeply research-driven agency, and we get excited about data, both qualitative and quantitative. And lastly but not leastly, mindful and responsible AI is one of the offerings of our company as well. We develop ethical and mindful AI practices. We ensure that your organization has the skills necessary to develop with an AI solutions and also have the ability to adapt to change, to upcoming changes. And my colleague Minna here is the AI and impact lead of Unknown. I'm a huge fan from many years back. And Minna has been working in digital business already since 1999 from various roles, including design, business, product management, and leadership as well. She has been one of the pioneers in Finland and also a huge advocate of AI ethics and mindful data usage since 2017, so way before this hype that we are experiencing at the moment. In addition to working at Unknown and being one of the founders of our company, she has worked in AI roles at Futurise, Sadoc.ai, and Silo.ai as well. Currently, she's working as the lead AI advisor in a large public sector Finnish organization. And apologies about the vagueness, but in the NDAs, you know the business. In her work, she has been focusing on aligning AI use with values and strategy, and also governing AI in that organization. But without further ado, I give the floor to Minna, my colleague, and go ahead and let's dive into the webinar today.
Thank you, Anna, and let's get going.
Puhu vielä läpi se kontentti varmuuden vuoksi. Mä en ole ihan varma, että mistä kohtaa se lähti se.
Okay.
Ei kun se 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so what I'm gonna present today is this kind of hamburger. So I will first explain why I think the basic foundations of responsible AI are more important than ever before. And then we go through the basics. And then after that, we kind of get a bit of a glimpse how to lead to change, how to lead to actually kind of get these foundations right, and what is important to start now to build your foundation, especially as a leader. So when we talk about responsible AI, it's basically like, okay, but what responsibility? Responsibility of which? What? So when we even think about the definitions at the moment, there's no like basically agreed definition for AI at the moment, because it's a bunch of different technologies. But what we normally use quite a lot is that generally we are referring to bunch of technologies that can be considered as learning, where especially when we talk about machine learning and not rule-based systems, the algorithms learn to structure data and make conclusion independently. So in terms of responsibility, it is thus important to understand that it's not trivial how we teach algorithms. It's the data and how we train extremely important. And maybe it's also like for everyone quite good to understand I mean, some of these are, I'm sure, really basic for some of you, but also I have noticed that some very basic things are not clear to everyone. So for example, AI is a general term. Some people actually refer it at the moment as a marketing term. Maybe that's a bit far-fetched, but you get the point. So in reality, it really consists of like several older and newer technologies. And for example, ChatGPT is natural language processing, and in this picture is there on the bottom left. And there are several ways to categorize AI technologies. This is just one of them, but the point is that that it's really just a bunch of different technologies. And when we talk about AI responsibly or responsible AI, it's especially the ethics of artificial intelligence are often thought as thinking about these kind of existential problems, such as whether artificial intelligence will become smarter than humans or whether it will develop consciousness even. And people are also talking about like quite a lot, which is kind of like a little bit less hype word for the same, but still very far away from what we are having now. And basically, one of the like really foundational things that I'm trying to kind of get through is that responsibility is ask the right questions. By far the most important and the largest part of all responsible artificial intelligence development is really the systematic describe after this. Responsibility is really much more boring than you might think. It does include thinking about this kind of like existential things of humankind. Does it become conscious? But it's much more something entirely more boring. So the claim is that being responsible in AI is a systematic process of mindful consideration. This is quite a mouthful, but this is kind of like how I would like to define it. And it starts from the data. It starts from, are we actually using the right data? Is it fit for the purpose? In what way is it incomplete or distorted? Because that's what data always is. It's always just a portrayal of things. And then when we add this kind of like algorithm or AI model into the picture, we start to really focus on what do we want to optimize? What are we asking? Are we asking it the right way? Are we using the right tools? Do we understand what it does? Can we explain how this algorithm works when it derives stuff from the data? And in terms of outcome, we need to think about the quality. Did we actually get answers to our original question that we asked with the algorithm from the data obtained like from this process? Is it a good enough starting point for the decisions made with it or what we try to make with it? And then when we think about like the action, is it like, okay, what are we using these results for? And what are the consequences of using these results, for example, for choices or decisions? And then ultimately, like who is actually responsible for any damage caused? So maybe simplified, all this would be like, what questions do we actually ask from the technology and the data, and how, and what will we do with the answers? And this is actually sometimes, at least with the technology development, people get this, what questions do we ask and how, but then it's often forgot that, we still have to consider what do we do with the answers? What are they good for? Are they actually usable, or do they actually, if they use them, do we mess things up? So it's extremely important also think about like the action part. And if we at this point go to data, so let's start from the left. Oh, and I go back a little bit, actually, that I'm not sure if you noticed what actually is missing from that. If we go back here, what is missing from here? What is missing is obviously like the ultimate questions that begins this all is like, why are we even considering using artificial intelligence technology to solve a problem? Should we? Is it rhythms? So you really start from the beginning, even before this process. So if we think about data first, data is a very useful thing. I'm not saying I'm not dissing data itself, but it's just really good to understand, especially now when there's so much kind of hype about like having like really large amounts of data and kind of powering these kind of tools that we are using more and more. But it's always an imperfect and distorted way of depicting things. It's imperfect approximation of some aspect of the world at the same time and place. So when you think about it, it has severe limitations because it's something we have decided to record and we have decided that it can represent some kind of thing in the world so that we can use it for the decision making. So there's like a lot of questions already about like suitability of the data for certain decisions. It's also always historical when trying to create the future. Just hyper focusing on past data is a little bit like driving a car using a rear mirror, you know. Again, data is super useful, but then you have to always think, and everything comes from past. Every little piece of information comes from the past. Then you might repeat the past with our tools, decisions, whatever we are doing. Is it okay? Sometimes it's totally okay. Or is it actually that we would like to do something differently, which then if we want to do something differently, we probably want to take different approach to that data. It's probably that we want to actually go and be quite critical about the data. So in terms of responsibility, it's really that you have to ensure that the AI development is such that we learn from the right purpose-fitting and high-quality data. And we do identify the imperfections and distortions. We call normally these bias. It's especially like human bias that creeps into the data. And even in high quality data, they're always present. So you normally, how it goes is that you, during the process of which bias is okay and which is not, and then you kind of like try as much as possible, minimize the bias you don't want in, and then you kind of let the bias that you are not so concerned about to be, because if you take all the biases away, there's no data anymore. And when you act responsibly with the data, it really kind of helps that you recognize the issues related to data and then kind of take really good look if this decision should or should not be made based on that data. So, and there's like a couple of examples in these images where it maybe went quite wrong or didn't, or went quite right. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that sense. Let me see. Then one thing still is that when we think about the quality of data, the more important the decision, the stricter the criteria for the data. So when we, for example, think about, I use ChatGPT as an example because everybody knows it. If we think about like we are using ChatGPT, for example, as just inspiration. We ask something that we just want to kind of get inspired about, like thinking out of the box and getting like multiple different like pieces of imagination to fuel our thinking, for example, for a new product or something like that. Then it's totally fine that we know that it's not like factually accurate. Then when we're talking about, like, let's say making a decision about credit, or making a decision about like social benefits, we obviously understand that the criteria for the data, and it's like how much we kind of want to have mistakes in it needs to be really, really strict. We can't allow, there's always mistakes, obviously, but it's totally different threshold than with the ideation process. Then when we think about algorithm, we are kind of like in a situation where we're like, okay, we have this thing. This is kind of a bit silly, because I don't like to humanize algorithms or anything, but quite often I'm kind of thinking that it's a little bit like training your dog. It's like you have to make it behave well. So an algorithm is the brain of artificial intelligence, the AI that you basically kind of like throw into the data, and then it kind of it works on the data and kind of like finds answers for the questions you pose it. And AI models basically apply one of several or several algorithms to the data, and they recognize patterns, make predictions, or make decisions without human intervention. So this is what they do. They recognize patterns, make predictions, and possibly make decisions if we ask them. And they continuously learn to better optimize the objectives set for them. So how they always work is that we tell them, please, I want to optimize X, Y, and Z. Normally just one thing. So you probably need like this kind of like multi-objective ones are not normally working so well. So we normally use narrow ones. It's like, just optimize one thing. Like in Facebook, they're like big algorithm that then takes input from different other algorithms, optimizes engagement, and that's it. Yeah, and in terms of the responsibility of it, the most crucial aspect is actually what is that objective. Everything else is yes important, but not as important. It's really, really important to understand what the algorithm optimizes, and it's really important to tell to the people what it optimizes if we are talking about their data or something that actually impacts them. And if we take, for example, ChatGPT, and thank you, Peter Sarlin from Silo for inspiration for this. He's my favorite bubble burster. He's always really factual and really like anti-hype about these things. Watching him and hearing him. So if we take ChatGPT, what it optimizes? Well, it optimizes fluent conversation experience over anything else. So guess what it doesn't optimize? It doesn't optimize factual output. And that's how it's done. And it works perfectly for that. It optimizes fluent conversation experience, and it gives that very well. And fun fact for it is also that it's actually super bad at math. So because it's a language model, it takes everything it has from text. So if it finds from the text that 2 + 2 is 4, but then again, because it doesn't actually calculate anything, it can give total nonsense or just get very confused about like any math problem, actual math problem that it doesn't have like textual input for. And anyway, it's as we know, it would be totally wrong way to approach a math problem, is to so what else? Super large amount of textual data straight from all around internet. Actually, it might be more, but for the GPT 3.5, it's 45 terabytes, which is a hell of a lot. And self-supervised automatic learning of words happens like after that. It's a neural network, basically. And self-supervised means that itself. So this kind of like, there's always humans labeling data, but why ChatGPT can use such a large data base is, or data set, is that it actually kind of sets those labels by itself, and that's self-supervised. So just trying to explain why it's so kind of like effective in these things. So it does learn words, their meanings and relationships. Basically, it starts to predict the next word. And then reinforcement learning is punishing and rewarding for the right behavior. And this is in very simple way. And this is simple, even if it feels like, oh God, there's like self-supervised and whatnot. But this is very simple model, simple expression of how it works. It's like lots of data, a language kind of like understands the relationships between words, and then reinforcement learning, where we kind of make sure it doesn't behave like really oddly, even if it sometimes behaves a bit oddly. So, and what comes out is basically something that we can call infinite nonsense creator. So this is how it works. It's great for certain things, but then because it is infinite nonsense creator, it doesn't have any idea about the world, basically. It just gives you the next word. It just basically works on the probability of the next word. You should use it as that. And when we understand that what it optimizes, we actually kind of understand quite well what it shouldn't be used for. So again, in this picture, in this whole slide, the most important thing, if you don't really even want to understand exactly how it works, is that it optimizes fluent conversation. That's the most important thing to understand. And then you understand quite well like what's going on. So really, when it comes to algorithms and how you can work responsibly with them, you want to be sure that you define the objectives of algorithms really carefully, taking all the impacts also in the account. You understand at a sufficient level the basis the algorithm actually makes its decision. Sufficient level means that sometimes with certain, again, as we had with data, with certain decisions or choices, the sufficient level might be something that you kind of understand the logic, but you don't understand exactly how the decision was made, because sometimes it is hard with the black box algorithms. But then again, sufficient level for some other decision might be that you have to reveal, or you have to understand fully what the algorithm exactly does and with what kind of parameters it uses, for example. And what's really important is kind of that you are able to explain the goal and logic of the algorithm for the stakeholders. So the really critical aspect of responsibility in algorithms is the explainability, which doesn't just mean that you describe the technical operation of the algorithm transparently, but actually ensure that the data used and how the algorithm functions can be explained to the people affected by the algorithm. So if you need to explain it to like 80-year-old, you have to actually take that into account. It's not enough to just, transparently kind of just lay it out in like in technical way, it doesn't help that person. So, and that wouldn't be responsible. That would be stupid, to be honest. And when we think about the environmental impact of AI, I think I don't go like too much into this, like, because we don't have limited time. But I mean, it is a neglected part of being responsible with the AI at the moment. And like, actually kind of these kind of large language models have really risen the point. They really, because they are so like computationally and also like data heavy, they will use much more energy and computation than many other models. And it's the sheer volume also, because so many people use, for example, ChatGPT. So kind of, yeah, the impact is becoming significant also environmentally, and you can see there that AI is and kind of also, if you think about like AI happens when we think about like AI solutions, the calculations normally happen in cloud. So it's really the computational element, and then it's the data which is in the cloud, and then the cloud part is normally what really kind of consumes a lot of electricity. So MIT reports, for example, that cloud services now have a larger carbon footprint than the entire airline industry combined. So it is becoming really significant. So, okay, what does it mean in terms of responsibility? It's really kind of going deeper to the infra, for example, and integrating the assessment and measurement of the environmental impact to the development of also AI, and favoring data and energy efficient, which are often simpler AI models. So basically, this is not a new thing. It's really like, if you sometimes we have this joke that, you know, that you use deep learning, which consumes a lot of resources, just because you want to use AI, when like simple, like let's say linear regression, which is like statistical method more than AI, could have done the same thing with like a fraction of effort and a fraction of like the computational power and therefore electricity. So it's not a new thing. And then definitely selecting your cloud services better, basically, and maybe pushing them also to be a bit better about this thing. And in the end, it's about ensuring how these AI solutions really necessary. Not everything that can be done with AI should be done with AI. It's sometimes it's like hitting a fly with a like elephant gun. Okay, so those were the real basics, and then there are also questions that need to be discussed, which kind of fall outside of this kind of this a bit more boring and systematic way of just making sure that you do things in a mindful way. And then we get into a little bit more, I wouldn't say maybe existential, but definitely like social problems. So and challenges. We actually need to have this discussion about the effects of artificial intelligence and how the use of it affects us as humans, affects us as societies. And these questions are kind of then what we need to, not again, what I'm not saying here is that will it become conscious? Will AI eventually rule us all? That's then even another level, important, but should be maybe contained compared to what's happening now and in the more near future, and even in the like medium term future. we have to ask things like, what can we trust as truth? Especially when I'm working now with like media, it's huge. We are gonna be having an absolute storm of fake and unreliable content thanks to various infinite nonsense generators we will have. So we need to adapt to that. We need to understand, what do we do? We can't anymore say that, we can prevent it, because let's be honest, we can't. But we need to then start to think like how to actually deal with this kind of like deluge of fake content and bad quality content, basically. And then it's also like which part of the knowledge or kind of is important in terms of our own thinking, and which is not, like how we learn, for example. Like what is essential in learning? If we outsource something to the AI tool that we should be actually learning by ourselves, how does it impact our thinking? We don't have like lots of answers to this, but then again, I think it's also something that is neglected at the moment. We are actually not asking from the like social sciences and human sciences these things enough. And then what should we really outsource to the machine from the perspective of our own human development as well? So there's a lot of questions that we should be asking. Then there's also, that's not mentioned here, but it is like the whole kind of change in terms like how we work, and how does that then, if the change is really quick, what kind of challenges we have in terms of like how we organize, like in different companies, in public organizations, like how people start to kind of like restructure their work, and what kind of support is needed to restructuring work. So these are big things. These are not part of the process itself, except like for the work, for the kind of thinking, what kind of consequences there, and we have to really, these are the wider and longer term consequences that quite easily get overlooked, because we don't really, especially in business, we don't really want to kind of look far enough. And this is actually something I'm really wondering, like how much like public sector should be driving certain things, because they are always kind of having this kind of longer perspective. But all the questions are out there, to be honest. And how we address these, like in terms of like, now we go more into this kind of like organizational angle, like if we are working in a company, for example. So we should have much more strategic level risk identification and management. So that's the bit longer perspective to things, kind of, take these things and kind of higher up in strategic thinking and go them through. Then there should be lots more of industry level cooperation to understand and manage transformational effects of AI on your own sector. For example, in media, the impact is huge, and there's happening, and there should be even more happening, a cooperation between different media companies and even media regulators to go through these things. Obviously, sharing learning and cooperation between industries, academia, and regulators, which is easier said than done, because things tend to be quite siloed. And then obviously, this is something that sometimes I see in organizations, that people don't give their employees or people in their organization enough maybe time to ponder these things. It's more like, let's just go and try it out. But then it's also very important not to just try things out, but to think what they mean, to think what this means for my work. What kind of ideas would I have? What kind of worries could I have? What could happen? So and that needs time. It's not something that you just kind of say to people that, adapt, AI is coming, use the tools. And then my favorite is multidisciplinary teams. So this is something I feel very strongly about. It is really about not thinking that tech and tech people can solve all things, but now is the time, like finally, to understand that it's about people, it's about the people impact, and it's about people who understand people. So no, it can't be tech domain only anymore. So then the good news is that when you start to lead AI from responsibility point, from responsible point of view, it has many benefits. So it frees energy because it reduces uncertainties that people have, and which kind of like makes them scared about doing things. And when there's support and information available in terms of legal things like legal constraints and challenges and the ethical issues, if those are clearer, it's much easier to make development decisions. And creativity obviously needs boundaries. So these kind of guardrails for responsible AI give you some psychological safety for actually kind of starting to throw ideas and utilizing artificial intelligence when you kind of know that inside these boundaries it's safe. And when we think about public trust and, for example, trust of your customers, doing things transparently and reliably, definitely kind of helps a lot, especially when that trust is quite a lot eroding at the moment. And I mean, basically, then a simple thing, being responsible leads to good quality, because it's a good quality way of it's quality way of doing things. It's mindful. It takes the risks into account. So, and okay, then if again this mouthful, being responsible is the systemic process of mindful consideration, then what follows is that we need to change how we develop technology, how we utilize technology, how we work in technology projects. We can forget finally all these things like move fast and break things, which still, even if it's kind of a meme, it's still something that Silicon Valley seems to more or less secretly think is a good way of doing things. And it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. No, please, no, not again. I never want to hear this again. And this kind of implement first, ask questions later. No, just the other way. Ask questions before implementing. Absolutely. It's the only way to actually address these risks. So and this is something I would like to hear from you also. Like if you see that this is something that fundamentally needs to change. It has been there. This wish to change the tech development has been there for a while. It's been boiling, but now I think these recent developments really kind of make it crystal clear. Okay, but how to do this? And this is where we kind of start to conclude. Okay, we went through the basics. So responsible artificial intelligence development and use includes examining the end results through both quality and consequences. So good quality and thinking about the consequences, and you're golden, basically. And you should be very aware about the context, because that determines the requirements for the quality of data and conclusions, basically, for example, accuracy. So you don't need to always be perfect, but then you need to understand when it's important. Understanding consequences in general is central, and everyone, including the developers, should understand, and the people who it impacts should understand. And a human is always responsible for the operation of artificial intelligence. AI can't, it's a technology, it's a product. It can't be responsible of anything, and you can't use AI without understanding you will be responsible. So it's we definitely shouldn't think that we just kind of shift the responsibility to any kind of system or machine, even if that seems sometimes in many organizations as a nice way to hide our own responsibility. I did it with this, and I don't know how it works. The list for if you are a leader, and if you are not a leader, you can then go and kick your leader's ass, is to start with this. You should start to align AI use and development with the values and strategic goals of your entire organization. Start to define guiding principles, drivers, and when those are set, when you have this kind of like, okay, these are guiding principles that then affect the whole technology and AI use in our company, then follow with more policies and governance, so that you actually kind of that's the practical part. You have guiding principles, and then you use policies and governance to actually make it happen, so that then your AI use and development is aligned with your values and strategic goals. And don't expect tech to handle it. They definitely won't. So saying to your tech department that please make our AI use responsible is not going to work, especially because AI use happens everywhere else at the moment also than in the realm of IT, because people are using it kind of far away from IT's influence, basically. And do lead responsible AI from the top, or it will not happen. So you need to start from these kind of fundamental things in your values, and consider selecting a responsible owner from the actual leadership team, so that it becomes a priority and there's a straight line to getting these things done in the leadership team. And I would encourage to map how AI is already used in your organization, because again, ChatGPT aside, you might be surprised in how many places AI is and will be soon present. And then I would say that it's probably a good idea to balance the very fragmented AI utilization with some central coordination. It's a new thing in a way. It requires this kind of new thinking. So quite often centralizing it a bit, having somebody or some team that kind of drives AI portfolio and training, for example, might make sense. And then it's about people, stupid. So start to bring more diversity into technology projects and development, and be very mindful about the kind of when introducing or thinking about kind of how to utilize AI, that all the so-called magic doesn't happen in the tech. It's not magic, it's tech. But the magic happens on the people side. So don't do things in a way that instead of AI helping people suddenly feel like they are kind of trapped in a system where they are there for the technology. So because that's a real risk actually. So for conclusion, responsible AI is about your ability to lead toward the unknown, toward something we don't know what is happening, but you need to build the foundation. And this whole presentation tried to give you idea about what kind of foundational things should be always understood. And it's enough to understand to then kind of go boldly ahead with AI utilization and development, but and it's not about understanding the deep tech. It's about understanding these basics and being able to converse and have discussions and dialogue with other people about these basic foundational issues. Thank you. Now it feels always very awkward to just kind of here, kind of. It's so much nicer to be in like in an actual live situation. But I hope everybody got something out of this.
I believe so. The amount of emojis that I'm seeing, then there was also a lively discussion in the chat going on as well. Thank you, Minna. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We have now a little bit time for questions. I will end the recording now as well.